and a bit more.
Thank you, Riv. A slow bleed there for Dignitas, really showing how comfortable Gravity can play when they have that gold lead.
Yeah, they were picking up every dragon, and they really had the control of the game with... They put Altic in a side lane, and he just keeps knocking down turrets once they got an advantage. Once the IE and the Zeal were in, he was just going to be the demolitionist role of Tristana, and then they were going to 4-1 split push. And every time you try to trade an objective against that 4-1 split push with Tristana, you're giving up that objective faster, and then he gets more CS on top of it. If you trade kills in the 4-on-4, then it's just an overall good trade for Gravity, and that's what kept happening to make this advantage just expand and balloon.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's 2 games in a row now we've seen Trist, and we're kind of seeing the reason that people would ever pick Tristana is because when you do get that advantage, being able to push down the turrets is pretty advantageous, and it's been credit to Gravity in this game and Team Liquid in the previous game to actually get to the point where they can abuse that incredibly quick turret killing ability.
Yeah, and what's interesting is on the other side of the map, we have Dignitas, who were struggling with those early deficits. But I want to look at the integration of Helios, because we bring him in, and we've had 1 successful game, 1 unsuccessful game in terms of win-loss. But the pressure has been somewhat lacking.
Yeah, early game pressure on Rek'Sai. I mean, even though they won the game against TSM, like the first gank as him as a Dignitas jungler was like 17 minutes into the game in the bottom lane. This game felt somewhat similar as he just didn't have much of an impact early. I'll give him a break. I'll cut him some slack because he hasn't been playing professionally since he got relegated. And I know he's had a lot of decision-making to do. You know, he said he was thinking of joining the military, but he still really thinks he can make it to Worlds. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to integrate because he's a very experienced player, and I think he's just a little rusty.
Yeah, he can kind of like merge with what Azingi was doing for the team, and their 3 victories will have that early game aggression. There's a lot of examples of how to pull that off that I think he can look at and be like, this is how I should gank for core JJ's lane. This is how I should get in on these. So there's a lot of growth that can happen there and a lot of improvement, and I don't think that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, another thing we saw here in this game was the J4. What's interesting is that there were so many. There's actually so many members out there on the field that could have played that. Gomsu's played it in the top lane, Moves played it in the jungle, but instead we see it go into the mid lane this time.
Suddenly, Jarvan is the greatest flex pick of all time with these teams. But it's a keen type champion is in the fact that you don't see many people play in the mid lane. And I said after Champ Select that I actually really liked the matchup against Azir. It's something I experienced a little bit early on with Azir when Jarvan was still a big time jungler, like in solo queue, and you would build Ravenous Hydra. Because once you build a little bit of damage onto Jarvan, he can pretty much just chaos dunk Azir anytime he wants. And we ended up seeing that over and over again where the Azir would just get completely blown up because Keen was just AD Jarvan. And it's easy.
And it wasn't always the Azir either. It was like, oh, whoever's here, just take that, Annie, take that. And it was awesome to watch that. Just once he got ahead and snowballed, pushing the advantage from Gravity was something they did very crisply.
Yeah, I do want to jump into our replay. We're going to 33 minutes into the game in the mid lane, and this is Dignitas looking for somewhat of a desperation engagement here, but in a sense, not respecting this damage that can come out of the Jarvan. So, Jat, we're going to throw this up on your screen. I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, and this was also a pretty poor play by Team Dignitas to eventually roll into this fight because they'd been waiting for so long to find a fight that they kind of overcommitted in this sense. So they did get a flash Tibbers, and they thought they caught all tech, but once that initiation didn't happen, Team Dignitas should have stopped. Now they are exposing themselves to the Jarvan flank, which is pretty immense. They click on Shifter, knock him up not once but twice, and even though, you know, he flashes away, he's really not able to do that much more. The dunk goes through. Emperor's Divide late. By the way, Jarvan can ult through the Emperor's Divide because the Jarvan ultimate is immune to CC while he's channeling it, so they just easily ace them, mainly because the beginning initiation there from Kiwi Kid failed, and Dignitas failed to respect the Jarvan.
Yeah, there's some really good signs of life there for Dignitas, though, because yesterday they won off of decisiveness in their calls, and right there, they saw Jarvan go bottom. They're like, oh, 4-on-5, rush the mid, rush up the gut. It's what worked yesterday, and it was really kind of Gravity just playing dead for them, and then they all collapsed, and that's really what it is. So, like, Dignitas, good job there with the decisiveness that they are going to fight this, but it was good by Gravity to bait it out. Yeah,
so some learning points there for Dignitas out of this game. Solid victory for Gravity, walking away, moving up the standings. We still got more action coming your way. Up next, it's Counter Logic Gaming as they take on Enemy Esports. Stay with us.